Welcome, disembodied teens, weightless aliens, and oblivious fathers, to episode 456 of an Unearthly podcast, streaming live on the 19th of July, 2022, and featuring Girl Deconstructed, written by Lisa McMullen, and starring Christopher Eccleston as the Doctor and Pearl Appleby as DC Jaina Lee. I am Bill Sylvia, the one in black, and apparently there are no photos of shattered porcelain elephants on the internet. With me are our color commentator Alex Fireheart
Almost wasn't here this week.
and technical director Mad Matt Winchell.
I live on chicken.
Ron Son is not with us today due to his ongoing issues with his medication, and hopefully they get that shit fixed, because I wouldn't want to be in his shoes the way things have been lately.
Yeah, it's been 3 weeks now.
Longer than that, I think, because it's been, I mean, maybe this particular, but it's been going on and off a few times.
In the long span of things, yes, it's come and gone more than a couple times, but this particular one has been going on now like 2-3 weeks.
So I guess I will update first, since I was the one who was gone last week. So last week, I went to a weight stigma conference in Berlin. Yeah, definitely. It was my first time flying internationally without meeting anybody at the airport or anything. So definitely an experience, but thankfully 90% of the people I met in Berlin spoke English, so that was very helpful.
Thumbs up.
Yeah. Next time I do that, I'm giving myself an extra day to rest before the conference starts. Because when you travel for, let's see, I left my apartment at 11 a.m., and then I finally arrived at the hotel in Berlin at like 3 p.m. Berlin time. So yeah, I was traveling, well, not over 24 hours, just because part of that was time zone difference. But it still it still left me quite a bit jet lagged. And also, since arriving back, my body is just like, I have no idea what time zones are or what being awake is. I just need to sleep. Yeah, so hopefully soon I'll be to my normal self. Do I have anything else interesting to say? I would have mentioned this to Rand, but he's not here. I'm not going to review it, but I finally watched a few episodes, possibly a season of Archer, so now I know what all that is about. It was funny. I enjoyed it. But I have no idea how much what season that even was. Probably a relatively new one.
I do know it's ongoing shows, so
right. And also I have a bunch of stuff in Geek Talk to talk about later on.
Yes, you have accumulated quite the list.
Over 3 weeks. Most of it in the past week. How about you two?
Well, Amazon had their Prime week just as I was about to terminate my Prime subscription, because I had gotten it because free shipping for pants. So I doubled down. I got a DVD of Guyver, which is still in the mail. At least I checked it, and it says it's shipping. So it's not that's not been shown up yet. It's the fact that it's in transition at the moment. Otherwise, the other two pieces I got a DVD of the movie M, starring Peter Lorre. And also, I forgot this details, directed by Fritz Lang. If you don't know who that is, check out the silent movie Metropolis. It'll be worth it, especially the newer extended versions, which restored a lot of missing stuff, or updated the music to 1980s music. Both versions are good in my opinion. Also got the Righteous Brothers CD that I ordered. And after coming back from work today, I checked my mail before getting stuff ready for this podcast and found out that the figure of Death Dealer I was waiting for, that I hadn't heard a peep about when I first ordered it. Is finally in shipping, and I think it's because the people I ordered from, they're technically an indie company, and they make their own comic books as well as merchandise based around those comic books. So I'm thinking there must be like a big resurgence in interest in their particular works, because they also have stuff like Bill and Ted right now in comic book form. So I'm thinking between Bill and Ted, Death Dealer, and a couple other things, maybe they're just a little swamped right now, so they probably need a month to catch up.
Mm-hmm.
But I have now heard that it's coming, so it should be arriving sometime within the next week or so. And the missing DVD I'm waiting for yet said it was sometime between today and Thursday that it'll arrive, so I'll check them out tomorrow. That's basically my list of stuff going on right now outside of... also I changed officially now my content as of this last week. Any multiplayer games I play will now only arrive as basically short clips to help advertise the long videos on the original live streaming website here on Twitch, for those that are actually listening live. And otherwise, YouTube is only going to get a clips video every 10 episodes I have streams of. So roughly 10 clips, somewhere in the range of like 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how long they get.
So are they going to be like actual, like a clip, like you upload like a 30-second video, or is it like a highlight reel?
Essentially, it'll be 10 clips strung together by interesting content, either funny moments, really successful moments, etc. So it'll be basically a clip reel, yeah. And the longest it can get is 10 minutes because Twitch only allows you to clip an entire minute. So it'll be roughly under 10 minutes, somewhere down below that. And that'll be used to further advertise for the video game channel people are interested. Otherwise, at least have a short clip reel to watch for entertaining stuff. And otherwise, the main focus of my YouTube channel is now going to be the music, because that actually gets more views. I did bardcore covers of like 3 songs, and they're both well deep into the double digits, almost at 50 views each.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, I'm keeping up with that. The hell of the rest of this stuff, it barely gets single digits.
What about you, Alex? Other than power outages?
Other than power outage, it almost cost us to not show today.
Yeah, that was annoying. Like, especially because, like, yeah, I had an alarm on to wake me up at like 11 a.m. And it was the earliest I'd gotten to bed in like quite a few days. So I was like, oh, you know, even if it doesn't go off, I should wake up like after just getting 8 hours. And then
I've had a couple days like this last couple weeks, yes.
Yeah.
I'm just burned out. Let's just go to sleep and I'll wake up before the alarm.
Yeah. Yeah. I wake up to check and the funny thing is I even had a dream that I was like an hour late for work or something.
That doesn't help the paranoia.
Kind of. Yeah. And then like I check my phone because I noticed that my clock's not working. And realized, oh, the fan's not working either. Oh, fuck. And like, you know, sure enough, it's like, it was either 1 or like a bit before 1, I think, when I finally was able to do that. And then I had to go outside just to get signal, because the only reason my phone would get any signal in the flat is because I have the setting turned on where it allows me to use the Wi-Fi as a mobile signal.
Oh, shit.
Because the signal's just absolutely god-awful in here. But yeah, that was frustrating. Because, like, especially... And the only reason I'd been, like, trying to, like, actively be like, no, I have to try and go to bed at least a bit earlier. Because, like, past couple of days, the sun will be coming up, and I'll be like, oh, fuck. And go to bed. Because I'd become... seemingly like I'd known that it existed, and then I gave it a shot, and then I just like fell down that rabbit hole of this like browser based thing called Journey of Wrestling, which is essentially this like fantasy booking thing. And like most of my days have been like since last week, since I discovered it, I've just been playing that.
Oh yeah, I've
And
been
like
playing
sinking
Warlock
so many
again.
hours into it.
I've been playing Warlock again. Yeah, I know where you're at.
And it's just
Did
like
3 hours really just pass by? Oh jeez.
yeah, like, and it's funny because like I've had moments of realization of like, shit, I probably could have finished Naruto Shippuden by now, but because I've only got like 30 something
to go play me game.
yeah. And then yeah, like, and I'd get like, it's in such a habit of it that it was just like, oh no. And then yeah, there's been days where I've had to just be like, okay, I'm just gonna stop now, because if I don't stop now, then I'm gonna be up all night. I mean, I still didn't get to bed until like after 2 a.m. But like, I'd stopped hours before then. So it was a matter of just, okay, now I need to like wind down for a bit.
What was it now? I can't remember. It was actually after that string of like close shifts I had like a couple weeks ago. I'm up at 4 o'clock in the morning, hear my mom going to the bathroom as she's getting up for work. I finally go to sleep as she's in the bathroom. She comes in that night. What were you still doing up at 4 a.m.? Trying to sleep. What do you think I was doing? I only just finally get sleepy-eyed the minute I hear you go into the bathroom. Heaven forbid my luck.
Yeah. And of course, the other thing that hasn't helped lately is that my the fan in my bedroom has decided to be super noisy. So now I have to like have it at like the middle speed, so it's not as noisy, so it's not as distracting. Which I guess is a good thing anyway, because it's winter here and it's actually been getting like decently cold.
Oh, speaking of weather and getting to work, yeah, mid to high 80s lately.
Oof.
That's 40s for you guys that use the other one.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's 30s
or high 30s, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whereas the UK is apparently experiencing 40 degrees for the first time.
And like forever, and everything is melting.
And yeah, none of their buildings are prepared for it. None of their buildings have AC. Most buildings in Europe don't seem to have AC, even in hot places.
Yeah, like a streamer from the UK I was watching said that he realized because of this that like you could probably count on your hands the percentage of Britain that actually has aircon buildings for that. So like businesses and that would, but like as far as homes go,
the UK streamer I watch is like
probably.
The UK streamer I watched was very happy that he has at least a window unit in his bedroom. Too bad it's not in his workstation where he melts.
Like the streamer I was watching was basically just wearing like as little clothing as he could get away with, but it's like I think he was just wearing like, I guess what you guys would call a wife beater. And like had a fan just pointed directly at him.
A tank top, but probably in his boxers, just with a fan on them, just going, "Oh Lord."
I mean, I've been wearing a beater and shorts with a fan directly on me pretty much since the summer started. And on that note, the conference I was at encouraged everyone to buy handheld electronic fans, and I'm one of the few who took them up on it, which actually is making things a lot more comfortable because now I can just turn a fan on whenever I'm feeling hot.
I have been contemplating looking around for another one of those. I haven't had one of those since I was like a teenager, like my early teens.
And I remember
would store it in my closet and pull it out whenever I needed it, and it was so handy some days.
And back then, I don't think they were that good. I don't think they were that effective.
No, they weren't particularly effective, but every once in a while, when you still needed a breeze and you had enough double A's lying around, it was better than nothing.
Yeah, nowadays they're USB powered, like rechargeable, and I think I would say pretty effective.
So I'll have to look into that because I could
Um,
definitely use one of those at work once in a while. Just sit that
mhm.
up somewhere on my register and just fan myself.
Any last things before we move on to today's show?
Not really. I will say I'm just glad that all this, that like me getting addicted to that thing happened while I've got like time off work. Like I go back
Yeah,
on the
if the
weekend,
power
which is
outage happened to you, I'm pretty sure your bosses would be understanding. Matter of fact, they might be unable to contact people that things are closed right now.
Oh well, seemingly it's only the area I live in because apparently they were replacing the thing that supplies power to it because apparently the one that was there was getting a bit old.
Oh,
So they started around 8 in the morning and like only just
I think I
finished
know the thing that you're talking about, but I
like under
can't.
an hour
My
ago.
brain doesn't want to brain it right now.
Yeah. Like yeah,
The usual
apparently
dyslexia
it was
shit show that my brain is.
yeah, apparently it was getting a bit like old or a bit iffy, so they were like, okay, yeah, we're just gonna replace this while most people will be at work.
No, it's like that, but not the word I'm looking for. Dang it. Anyways, yeah. Yeah, they had to replace it, and it's just like takes forever, and of course
Yeah.
gives nobody any warning. Good luck, suckers.
Okay, so on tonight's show, we've got a smattering of birthdays, a bit of news, a larger amount of geek talk, and then we've got our episode summary by Alex, and then we've got our episode review, final thoughts, and ratings. So I'll go ahead and start with the birthdays. We've got Miles Richardson, who I don't think has ever been on screen, but he's played Irving Braxiatel in so many Big Finish stories. I still thought him worth mentioning.
Fair
He
enough.
turned 59 on July 15th. Also on July 15th, Angus McKay, who played Cardinal Barusa in The Deadly Assassin, would have turned 96, except he died in 2013 at the age of 86. On July 17th, Dave Chapman, who did special effects for the classic Who from 1973 to 1989, turned 71. And Matt, you might know this. When someone's credited as electronic effects, is that pretty much the same as like digital effects, or would that be something different?
Electronic effects?
Yeah.
That could go to either or depending upon who you're talking to and which group you're looking
Mm-hmm.
at.
And this would have been the BBC in the 70s.
BBC in the 70s. Electronic effects.
And then and in the 80s, it was credited as it was just digital effects or special effects. So I'm wondering if that's pretty much just all means digital effects, or if he also did practical.
Electronic effects. So they were credited as electronic effects?
Yeah.
70s. I'm not getting anything I can actually look into for this.
Okay. Yeah. I just thought it might be something you would know because you're the effects guy.
But if it's a visuals effects, it's not like it's just an auditory thing.
Right.
So yeah, I would assume then that must mean like very early digital effects, essentially
Okay.
like the stuff you would do to superimpose like lightning or other psychedelic, trippy visuals and stuff like that. Essentially,
Okay.
I would assume it's like I would assume it's basically their very basic limited amount of like After Effects they could do back then, as opposed to
Right.
actual on-set stuff.
And if I didn't mention, Dave was active on Doctor Who from 1973 to 1989. Then our final birthday is on the 18th of July. Barry Gray, who composed the electronic music for the two Aru Doctor Who movies, would have been 114, except he died in 1984 at the age of 75. So happy birthday, Miles, Angus, Dave, and Barry.
Yeah, that's actual electronic audio.
Right. And that brings us to Alex with the news.
Yep. So first up, Freema Agyeman has been announced as one of the stars in Dreamland, a drama series on Sky, and based on the BAFTA-winning short of the same name. Elder sister Trish, played by Agyeman, is pregnant for the third time with her partner Spence, and this time she's decided it's going to be a girl. Her two sisters, Claire and Layla, rally around her with their mum and their Margate legend Nan manifesting a little girl at Trish's Manifestival. But when their other sister, Mel, makes an unexpected reappearance back into their lives, her return threatens to destabilize the entire family. Knock on their door, and their dreamland is no more.
Can I just say I cracked up at this title, considering that Dreamland was a Martha Jones Doctor Who episode.
Yeah. Not to mention she's playing a character named Trish.
Right, which was her sister, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Hmm.
In other news, speaking at a fan event, Christopher Eccleston has announced that he recorded an audio drama, presumably for Big Finish, for the 60th anniversary. He referred to it as very special and played up the fact that he was working with David Warner, who some may know as the Doctor from Big Finish's Doctor Who Unbound universe. Big Finish has not made any official announcement about the 60th anniversary at this time.
One thing that does confirm for sure is Christopher Eccleston will not be doing anything on screen, just in case anybody thought he might have been.
Yeah. So I guess it's just him preemptively saying, if you're expecting anything from me from the 60th, it'll be audio.
Mm-hmm. And also, by the way, Radio Times, go get bent. I'm going to continue to block your ads. Bye.
Oh.
I really hate these annoying pop-ups that tell you can turn off your ad blocker. No.
Oh, God.
Go away.
Oh, right.
You and your intrusive BFs can get the hell off my websites. Thank you. Bye. So anyways, Big Finish.
Yep. On the 13th of July, Big Finish releases a unit, Brave New World Seabird 1, as the first release of the new unit team. This time, pardon me, focusing on battlefields, Angela Bruce as Brigadier Winifred Bambera. Seabird 1 features 3 stories written by Robert Valentine, Alison Winter, and Alfie Shaw. And I'll say for that one, it's like, wow, it's really taken that long to bring that character back.
Yeah, for some reason.
Oh, then again, seemingly she's done some stuff before, but like this is like a big return, so there's been a gap at the very least.
Whereas my reaction is, what is that? The 6th unit team that they've done a separate so-called series about for Big Finish. Like,
well,
so I guess at least in
every
this
generation
one,
is very different and with a very different lineup of cast. So,
like I think
it's
they
long overdue to bring the '80s unit back.
They did the RTD era unit, the Moffat era unit, the Nicholas Courtney era unit. They did the countermeasures team from Remembrance of the Daleks, which was the precursors to unit. And then they did another unit team that was all Big Finish exclusive characters. So that's 5. Oh no, because I didn't count this one. So this one, Battlefield, makes 6.
And it's funny because like this one, they're probably gonna have to just settle on their own thing for the vague time it's supposed to be set. Because I think like this wasn't supposed to be late 80s. This was supposed to be like maybe somewhere in the 90s.
Yeah, it's the Big Finish website says they're set in the 90s, but I mean that's probably because Battlefield was released or aired in 1989, so they're probably ignoring the dating controversy at that point.
Oh, like as far as I am aware, like the writer was under the impression that the team was supposed to be like a not current day unit team.
Okay.
So this is supposed to be set like vaguely in the future at some
Oh,
point.
okay.
So, but not like
Either way,
distant.
now it's vaguely in the 90s.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's like it's close enough that it's like, yeah, that's future compared to 89. Anyway, out today is Big Finish's adaptation of the novel Emancipation of the Daleks, written by Jonathan Morris, featuring the 12th Doctor, Bill Potts, and Bill Potts from the future. Emancipation of the Daleks is read by Dan Starkey and features Nicholas Briggs as the Daleks. Because of course.
I will admit, so the one thing that makes me less interested in reading this is knowing how Bill's story ends. We already know if there's a Bill Potts from the future, then that means it's an aborted Paradox timeline. Which,
Yeah.
I mean, how it happens is always, interesting, but it's already clear like this Bill is never going to exist just from what we know about Doctor Who.
Yeah. In other Big Finish news, Big Finish has announced a new range of audio dramas starring Anjali Mahindra as Rani Chandra from the Sarah Jane Adventures. Rani Takes on the World is set 15 years after the Sarah Jane Adventures and stars Rani as a journalist in London living the Sarah Jane life. If we're not going to get it from the main show, then I'll take it.
Right.
From Big Finish.
About dang time.
Yeah, like, again, I've said before, if they could at least give us, like, a holiday special where, like, the normal companions at the time are off doing their own thing, and the Doctor of the time, like, runs into the Sarah Jane Adventures kids again.
That would be
like,
cool.
That
But
would be
but
really
as like
cool
the
as a one-off.
middle to young adults as they are
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
right now, it'd be like, oh, you lot. Oh yes, you. Come on this way.
Like I still maintain that the best 60th anniversary special, or even the centenary special, the best way to go about it would have just been like a series of specials with companions showing what they've been up to since whatever X time they last saw the Doctor.
Mm.
And
I mean,
yes,
hell,
the
you
Sarah
could
Jane
even...
Adventures crew count.
Yes.
Yeah. And hell, you could even do that as, like, webisodes or something.
Or
Right.
something, yeah. Even just little short, little spin-off thingies that you can put out there real easily.
Yeah. Like, not have them fighting any monsters or anything. It's just, like, them going about their day.
There's just gotta be a little something.
Mm. Or I guess, like,
you can't have someone like Ace without them fighting monsters.
Yeah.
It depends on who you pick.
Right. Or hell, like, you could even be like, well, these are the companions we want to have come back for the special. So, like, have webisodes where it leads into.
Right.
Like, you could, in a way where you could maybe ignore them, but also they, like, lead into, oh, this is where they are to find out what's going on for the 60th sort of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So very, like, Night of the Doctor-ish.
Mm-hmm. All I want is a group of Sarah Jane kids now as adults just running out of a building. Not the Brood again!
All right, so I guess that brings us to Geek Talk. I guess I'm the only one who's watched or read anything.
Anything
I guess,
new?
yeah,
sure.
I did. I almost forgot, but I did finally finish Obi-Wan, so I could probably talk about that real quick.
I almost texted you about Thor: Love and Thunder, but I guess you haven't watched it yet.
Not yet, no.
Okay. All right. All right. So I'll give it a start with. So did you want to talk about Obi-Wan, or did you want to?
I guess I can just talk about it. Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I can just talk about it first. But yeah, it's kind of funny because I think it was just like one day, last week, just being like, oh yeah, I should probably just finish that, eh? Because I only had like one episode left. I feel like ultimately, my thoughts on the Obi-Wan show are just, it's not bad. but I am really not the target audience, which is funny when you think about the fact that I'm of the generation that grew up on the prequels. But it's just like, if I was gonna get an Obi-Wan show, I didn't want a planet hopping thing. Like, the early on stuff were like another person who survived the purge running across him, and like Obi-Wan initially refusing to help them, sort of a thing. Essentially like that, but a show. Was sort of what I wanted, if nothing else. Or just like him helping people, but him dealing with shit on Tatooine.
Yeah,
Rather than
which
planet
is
hopping.
what a lot of, to be fair, is what a lot of in between stories have been. The better stories have been.
Because it's one of those things of like, he's dealing with all this, there's so much that he is dealing with as a character, and it's going to be something that like only a niche within a niche audience are watching anyway. So it's like, you probably could have kept the budget down and just kept him on Tatooine.
Mm-hmm.
And had it be more like a psychological exploration of where he's at right now. And also just like, a lot of these are very nitpicky, but I'm looking at this and going, how has he not got like way more gray hair by now? Because like, he's supposed
Depends
to be,
about how long after.
Yeah, I keep forgetting, because it's either
roughly supposed to be, oh no, it's supposed to be 10 years after, which is funny because in real world terms, it's 17 years after. So more time has passed in the real world than in the show.
Yeah. Which is funny because like at that point you could, and like, does he have to be like completely white by then? No, but like, I mean, given all he's bloody been through, it would make sense. I mean, like, hell, I've said before to people, it's like, friggin' hell, I'm in my early 30s and I've already got kind of a Reed Richards thing going. Like,
Oh,
30-second warning.
when I grow my hair out. So yeah, it's like, this is worth watching, I think, mainly for you and McGregor. But it's yeah, it's just like, it's not what I and not in a like, I'm going to get angry about it kind of a thing. No,
it's just not a
one of
hard
those.
sell.
And yeah, it's not ultimately for me. So if other people enjoy it, that's fine.
Okay,
so moving on, the next one is Ms. Marvel, the next Disney Plus show.
Mm-hmm.
And Ms. Marvel is well, I'm kind of annoyed because they do pronounce it as Miss Marvel in the show. But it's very much, the characters and personalities are 1000% directly from the comics. All the things Ms. Marvel fans are looking for, they will find. The origin stories and such do not match up because there's no Inhumans in the MCU. However, I actually thought that made for a better story because the story they made actually had to do with her Pakistani history, and not to go into spoilers. But I've talked with some people who found it really interesting learning about history that way, because it was just kind of just gone through in the story. So I would say this was a very good show. I feel like there was something else I was just about to mention, and then I just accidentally knocked it out of my brain. But yeah, oh, that's right. There is the minor issue that despite the fact that apparently this is the highest rated show in terms of like audience ratings on Rotten Tomato, apparently it's the most watched show by Disney Plus subscribers of color and the least watched show by white subscribers. So it's basically the Luke Cage of Disney Plus. So, all those people who said that, people of color should be able to identify with a white hero weren't willing to watch a Pakistani hero. Big shocker. But if you enjoy the Ms. Marvel comics, you'll love this. If you enjoy, if you're a Spider-Man fan of any of the stuff with Spider-Man as a teenager, this is that, but better, because the original comics came out in 2014. So it's them. It's a new variation on the theme. So if any of that kind of stuff is something you're interested in, check out Ms. Marvel. I highly recommend it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of those things where like I've fallen off the wagon with like Disney Plus shows in general. I mean, with how long it took me to even start Obi-Wan.
Honestly,
and I still haven't
kind
started
of
Miss
keep
Marvel yet.
honestly, I keep a distance from this version of Marvel because they've been trying to keep her running for so long, and honestly, every comic run just kind of dies, and then they wait a few months and bring it back again. I'm not sure what they're trying to do with this character.
I haven't. So I've
I
only been
understand
reading
it's a very different thing, this particular interpretation, but I'm sure that doesn't leave a good taste in people's mouths either.
I've only been reading the 2014 run. I haven't started the which is G. Willow Wilson. I'm not sure who makes the following run. I haven't started that one yet.
Yeah, it just keeps kind of stopping and starting, and she was also I believe she was kind of pseudo the main character in that Avengers Square Enix game, but that was also a really bad game, so that didn't really help her image either.
So I can imagine there are some people who would blame her for the game, even if it's not the character's fault.
Possibly, or just they see her splashed around as the title character for the game and just go, "Why are you making a show of that?" Nah. It's possible that she just might have bad fan attention right now because she's been part of some lackluster things before this.
But yeah,
maybe in time it'll turn up. Who knows?
In terms of the 2014 comic run, which is where the character was introduced and that this was based on, the only complaints I've ever heard is that Marvel's big events keep derailing the comic and interfering with ongoing plots. So basically,
that happens to all of them.
Yeah, so basically the Marvel editors ruined the story, but otherwise it's good.
Well, yeah, the Marvel editors have not been very great in the comics either lately.
Right.
Because I know the main change from the comics to this show is just that she's not an Inhuman, because they basically jettisoned the Inhumans.
Yeah.
Well, they jettisoned the Inhumans because the X-Men weren't owned by Disney until very recently.
And also, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. wasn't highly watched, and the Inhumans show was crap. So they want to distance themselves as far from the Inhumans as physically possible right now.
Yeah. Wait, give it some time, and then maybe they'll bring some of that back and fix it up a little.
Yep. All right, so speaking of the MCU, I would have talked about this last week if I were here. Thor: Love and Thunder, which is another Taika Waititi entry. And I mentioned that I felt that Thor Ragnarok felt a bit disjointed. It felt like there was one movie set on the comedy planet and one movie set on the dark and gritty planet. And Love and Thunder kind of feels that way too at times. It's not quite the same. It's more zigzagging back and forth. So for example, the Warriors 3 were all killed in Ragnarok because they lived on the dark and gritty planet. So Korg, who lived on the comedy planet, is now a main cast member, and he's there in every Thor scene. So that's just an example of kind of the tone of this movie. There's also the fact they cut a whole bunch of really interesting plot lines. So like the Valkyrie actress was trying to get people excited for her plot line, and then they cut that plot line for pacing.
Ooh.
So it's basically the first half of the movie, they cut about half of that first half of the movie, and it kind of makes the rest of it feel a bit disjointed. So that's not to say this is a bad movie, but it definitely feels like, from what I get, it was basically butchered in the editing booth. And I don't agree with some of the final decisions they made, and I think a lot of other people don't either.
Yeah, I can see where that's coming from now with some of the reactions I've heard. I've also heard for enough reactions where they're like, turn off your brain and just go through it like the previous Thor movies, you'll be fine. But there are some issues still.
Right. The one thing I can say is the action scenes, perfect, 10 out of 10. Great stylization, great action. All of that is good. The drama, so I'm not going to go into the details, but if you know comics, there's an infamous subplot to do with the Jane Foster Thor character that a lot of people have had problems with. Apparently, the version in the movie is miles better. They cut out a whole lot of the problematic shit that people complained about and made it a lot better. That said, that's one of the subplots they cut some of the stuff from, so it's still not as good
So it's still a
as
little
it probably could have
janky.
been. So I would say it's definitely better than Thor 1, which is one of my least favorite MCU movies. Definitely not as good as Thor 3, which is one of the best, which is one of the most loved ones. But if you enjoy Chris Hemsworth and you enjoy, pretty much that. If you enjoy Chris Hemsworth Thor, you're going to enjoy this probably regardless. It's
So I'll
just
probably enjoy a good half of it or more.
yeah. So it's just it's not a 10 out of 10 movie. It's somewhere around the middle.
It's its own cheeky, jokey movie. Don't take it too dang serious.
Mm-hmm.
In the words of
But
Mr. Side Series, you should
that
just learn to
said-
relax.
That said, there's also some super serious shit in it to the point where some of the stuff, I think it might have been Feige or somebody above Feige who came in and said, no, you have to cut those scenes because they're too serious for little kids.
Oh, jeez. So they really do suffer from the inability to decide which direction Thor should go in, don't they?
Right.
Yeah.
Serious fantasy epic or jokey, lighthearted, cerebral sci-fi? We can't decide.
Yeah, so it's if you hate dark and gritty, you won't like this. But if you hate jokey, you won't like this either. You have to be okay with it being in the middle.
A movie that literally fights with itself.
Right.
I will say, given the direction Thor's been going in, when I did find out the villain is Gore the God Killer, I'm like, really? That's an interesting pick.
Mm-hmm.
Not even sure who that is. So it should be an interesting pick, I hope. I did see when I was looking at title cards for this bit that there's some creepy looking guy in the background, but that's all I saw.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, if you don't know, on a related note, I still this is one meme that made people laugh up. So he's played by Christian Bale. So people share the meme of him, Christian Bale, and then Gore the God Butcher as Atheist Bale. So it's not the funniest thing ever, but it's a chuckle. It's a good dad joke.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next movie, we've got The Matrix Resurrections. So this is the fourth Matrix movie. And I didn't make it a high priority to watch this because the reviews were middling and I didn't want to ruin my experiences with the first movies if it wasn't that good. I liked it. I wish I had gone out of my way to watch it sooner. That said, the first act of this movie is the most meta thing I've ever seen that's not a parody. They have long conversations about what it means to make a Matrix 4. They talk about all of the different themes in the Matrix movies. Like, you'd have to watch the movie to understand why they're having these conversations. But I was cracking up. I loved the way they did that.
Yeah.
To be fair, the seriousness of the Matrix jumped the shark in 2 for me, so whatever at this point.
Right. So I do think speaking of 2, I do wish they had been able to get Hugo Weaving back because they put somebody else in his place and you're just supposed to pretend it's still the same person, which I know, I guess that was really common in movies at one point. It's less common nowadays. I wish they had just been able to get him back. That said, I know there was the big thing with the trailers. Why is it a different Morpheus? That actually is explained. It's part of the whole meta-ness, and it makes a lot of sense once you watch it. So that said, I would not this isn't by any means. It's not as good as the first Matrix. I don't think anybody thought it was going to be. But I do think it's enjoyable. It keeps my attention a lot better than Matrix 3 did. If you're a fan of the Matrix and you like picking apart its themes and like actually engaging with what the story is trying to say, I would suggest watching it. If you like to turn off your brain and just watch it as an action sci-fi movie, I would say to that too, because I did that a lot of the time. Um, there's nothing as epic as, it's not like Neo fighting the exiles at the height of his power and flying around like Superman. It's not like that. It's a little more toned back in that regard. It deals a lot more with, the story issues and the things about choice versus destiny and that sort of thing. So if you enjoy that sort of analysis of the Matrix, I highly recommend it. And now I'm coughing and I'm out of my drink. And I still have 2 more things to go through.
Next up, Dune.
Yes. These two I'm going to kind of go through at the same time because it doesn't make that much sense to do the movie and then the graphic novel. So first I read Dune the graphic novel book 1, which basically goes about 2/3 of the way through what the Dune 2021 movie goes through.
Gosh,
Partially
even
because it
less
has
than-
extra
Jeez.
plots. Huh?
Even less than what that movie covered? Jeez.
Yeah, like it ends earlier, but it has there's more subplots from the book that never made it into the movies.
People are lazy at trying to get through this plot. you all need to watch that 1980s version and pick up the pace, please.
Well, think about it. The comic is supposed to hit every plot from the movie. It's an adaptation. It's not a reinterpretation. Whereas movies are supposed to be faster paced. So I have no problem with the comic taking longer to get there than the movie does. So that said, the comic made it a lot more clear to me because when I watched the original 80s version, I was so confused. I had no idea what was happening. I felt like I was taking LSD and watching a movie. That's how I felt watching that movie. Whereas now
yes, you do realize Frank Herbert was high on shrooms when he wrote this stuff, right?
Whereas now I actually fucking understand the plot because so that's the big difference between these two and the original. I actually understand what's fucking happening. So that said, when I got to watching the 2021 movie, I actually felt like it was rushed compared to the book, specifically because they cut out a subplot that's basically it's sort of like a whodunit mystery, and that part I understand why they cut out, but it cut out a lot of character moments that foreshadowed things that were to come. So all of these things that were foreshadowed in the book were instead just kind of came out of nowhere in the movie, and it felt rushed as a result. It felt like they were just trying to get from point to point to point to point. Instead of going there, instead of bringing through all of the important baggage that came with it. So I liked the graphic novel more than the movie. That said, I didn't outright. I think the movie was done all right. I think Chalamet is the name of the actor who was the star. He did a pretty good job. Zendaya was just pretty much there to just be like, oh, you know who Zendaya is from the Spider-Man movies. Aren't you curious about what her role is going to be? And that's pretty much the entire role that she plays in the movie. That's not even hyperbole. So it's a good way to retell the story. I think what I'm going to do next is I'm going to see, assuming I can stream it, rewatch the original 80s movie now that I actually understand the plot. I don't know where I'm going to rank that, but the Dune 2021 movie, it's not one of my favorite movies. I don't feel like I wasted my 2 hours either, but it's like a middle of the road Star Trek movie, I would say. It's not like Wrath of Khan, but it's not like it's better than Star Trek 5. Maybe it's like the 2009 movie.
Also have to ask Bill, which version of the original 80s movie did you see?
It was probably on Netflix at the time. So I don't know what the different movies are. Yeah, I didn't even know there were different movies. I mean versions.
There's 3 versions of the 80s movie. There's the theatrical one, which cut out a lot of stuff because there's a lot of unfinished stuff.
So
Then there's the
Mhm.
air quotes director's cut, even though the director never was involved in any additional scenes being added back to the movie, which includes scenes, but only the ones that were completely finished, but just were cut for time for a reason for the theatrical cut. And then there's the full-on producers extended edition, which finally has all the scenes that added back into it. Even
probably
if
was
all the details ending those scenes weren't
mm,
all there, they tried their
it,
best to tie those up as best they
it
could and then moved
it was
on.
probably the theatrical version, but the main thing I remember is it started off with like a narrator giving an info dump, and I was just like, "What the fuck are they talking about?" And then the next thing you know, Paul is putting his hand in the box and everything else, and I spent the entire movie
So
feeling like I was
was the
on an acid trip.
narrator a woman that just showed up
I
on
think
screen?
so.
So
Like
yeah, you
this,
probably watched the
this,
theatrical cut.
this was over 10 years ago, so I'm not I'm not
If
speaking with confidence, but
if the emperor's daughter just literally showed up on screen and then started narrating the opening, then that's the theatrical cut, and that's
that was
probably the most
that's
chopped down
probably it.
version.
Okay. So that
Because
might be part of it then.
the full-on extended versions after that actually have Frank Herbert himself come on to explain everything in detail as to what the setup is, as much as he
Oh,
can
okay.
before we get into the movie.
Got you.
So yeah, that's probably half the issue right there.
But yeah, mainly it was just that so much information was given up front that I couldn't process it, and I was like probably in my early 20s at the time, or like late teens.
Don't get me wrong, it's still a hell of an information dump, but they at least give you the time to like even give you picture representations of what the hell happened.
Oh, okay.
Because they talk about the robot uprising and show images of that and all the other stuff that goes on before the events of Dune. And again, also narration by Frank Herbert, which is worth it. They keep that clip just in and of itself for that reason.
Oh, that said, the 2021 movie does not go into the stuff that happened beforehand yet, either. So
Yeah, it just kind of launches and just
the
goes,
lore very well, it really goes with the stuff that it considers most important, but it's still more extended than the first movie was. Anyway, I stopped. I didn't time this because I was doing two things at once, but we've probably gone over 6
We've probably
minutes.
gone over, yeah.
So I'm going to grab a drink, and Alex can do the summary.
All right, stopwatch is ready. Are you ready, Alex?
Just a sec. Okay, yep.
All right. Starting 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, the Doctor lands in 2004 in Dundee, Scotland. And it turns out that a bunch of people have gone missing, but through a bit of research, they seem to figure out that it's actually that people have been deconstructed, as it were, as they keep referring to it, by an alien race called the Seraphim, who don't realize that they're doing anything wrong, but it's all these people had wanted to be spirited away from wherever they are, and the Seraphim just kind of caught on to that and did it. And they managed to get Marnie, the most recent inadvertent victim of this. They managed to get her back to normal. But it is also pointed out that pretty much everyone else that this happened to is just kind of doomed to that existence now. Because the Doctor doesn't want to go back and save everyone else because that would screw up the timeline, apparently.
No, he saves everyone that this happened to at the same time. It's just that you can't go past 24 hours. Anyways, continue.
But yeah, they also have a we sort of end on them having like a little birthday party for Douglas, one of the people that this happened to and wasn't able to say it because it happened so long ago. And the Doctor ends up having bought the house, so Douglas is free to just exist in that form forever until he possibly dies. They don't really completely
He'll
go into
basically
that.
die of old age. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And he says goodbye to the cop and then leaves. The end.
Well, that's get a
That
lot
was
of
one.
stuff.
Yeah. That was one where I didn't write it down, and I only got to listen to it the once, so it was like, well,
that whole he doesn't want to save anybody. No. he saves all the kids because there's like 40 some kids that he saved essentially, but he saved them all in like 30 minutes, and that was basically off screen.
4 hours, I think.
Yeah.
And the reason they couldn't save some of the older ones like Douglas is because the hand-wavy excuse of, oh, if it's been more than 24 hours, the energy's all gone and I can't do anything to bring them back. Kind of like Love and Monsters in that sense. To bring up a bad episode as to why we can't save everybody.
So to start with what we liked about the episode, we start with Alex.
Yeah. Ooh, let's see. I guess I like the idea of like the general concept of this is essentially Doctor Who giving a sciencey explanation for hauntings, I guess. It's like, well, they're not ghosts, they're just like people whose atoms have been redistributed, etc. So they're like, they sort of exist and they can fuck with stuff, but you know, they're not ghosts. They're still alive technically. They're just not one being at the moment.
All right. That it?
Mm-hmm.
Okie doke. So I guess it goes to me then?
Yep.
All right. Favorite thing, I guess. Actually, Brain, why can't you name names now? Dang it.
I should bring up the names. Who? Description.
The Doctor.
Wait. Oh, the actor.
The actor, yes.
Christopher Eccleston.
Eccleston, yes. God.
I was like, you forgot the Doctor's name. His name is the Doctor.
His actor's damn name, because my brain don't want to work. Eccleston, loved his dialogue in this a lot better than the last audio adventure we had him in. This was very much more written to be a proper Ninth Doctor, I feel.
Okay.
Yeah.
He still played it very serious, but you can tell there's a little bit of tongue-in-cheek in some of the stuff he's saying.
There were a few lines where his accent was a bit off for the Doctor, but
yeah, I didn't really mind the accents, but I didn't pay too close attention for the accents either. I was just focused on how was he written. He was written a lot better on this one in particular.
I guess that you could also even chalk it up to the first volume. They were just kind of getting into the rhythm of having to write for a Doctor they've never written for.
That's possible too. They were just trying to get used to him again, depending upon this particular
like,
characterization of the Doctor.
Yeah, and Eccleston also trying to get back into the rhythm of playing
that
character.
Yeah.
I wonder if that one was recorded remotely as well. I forget when it came out, but
I think it was.
I feel like they all were recorded around the same time. So
most likely, I think it was at the very least a year or so in advance, but it was still during quarantine and everything else. So I would not be surprised.
Yeah, because I know they announced these in 2020, but I forget if like it was a matter of we've actually recorded anything previous, but we just couldn't say anything yet, or
well, I know this particular box set was all recorded remotely. And I think they announced all 3 box sets around the same time, so they might have recorded them all around the same time.
Yeah, they might have recorded them all around the same time. They just hold on to it because you don't want to just release all of it and none of it, and half of it doesn't sell because people are wanting to listen to the first one first.
Yeah.
Yeah, slowly release this stuff. Otherwise, people get
actually,
tired real quick.
Yeah, now that I think about it, yeah, given that this was released in August of last year, I would assume that they would have all been done in 2020 at the very least. So,
Most likely, yeah.
Unless one was done like really early in 2020, they were probably all done remotely.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So it's on to me then, right? You're all set? Okay. So I like that this was kind of a new take on the alien abduction idea, but even more than that, that it was a take that was well suited for audio. So like the whole idea of like, oh, there's an empty room, but Marnie can still see you, would be really difficult to do visually.
Yeah.
But it makes perfect sense for an audio drama. And it really kind of fits with the overlapping, audio layers and everything else in a way that might have been a bit boring to watch on screen.
Maybe. It's definitely more suited to the theater of the mind, the way they audibly do it.
Right.
I guess I'll also give this credit for, like, I think this in total was like 48 minutes.
Yeah.
I think it did not feel like it.
Yeah, it felt like maybe just on the upscale of like just almost 30.
Right.
Just almost 30. And it's like, wait, are you sure it's 48? Yeah, that's what the timer says.
Is it 48 including the behind the scenes, or is that like, did you time that while you were listening to it?
No behind the scenes, just like the ending credits afterwards, maybe included.
Okay.
But that was it.
Because I noticed when I was listening to it in the audiobook format that the behind the scenes were part of the same like book, quote unquote. So I wasn't sure if that was part of the timestamp.
That was not part of what I saw there. No,
Okay.
It was just like the opening big finish thing, the entire episode run through, and then the ending credits, which I assume would just be them audibly saying who starred as who.
Right.
Which, obviously, I didn't wait for that. I just kind of heard the ending Doctor Who theme music and was happy with that.
Oh, and actually, now that I think about it, the behind-the-scenes thing might be a different story I listened to on the plane, so that has nothing to do with this.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah. So what happens when I listen to something else, and then I re-listen to this for the podcast. But enough rambling. This is on to Alex. What's what you did not like?
Alex?
Oh. Are you here?
Yeah, Discord decided to randomly crash.
Oh,
gotcha.
Okay.
So yes, it's up to you with what you did not like.
Honestly, I might have to pass because I don't think there's anything beyond really nitpicks that I could maybe really think of, especially because I only really had the chance to listen to it the once.
Okay.
Or at least like nothing that I couldn't just bring up as a scene potentially.
Gotcha. Okay. So Matt.
I will say some stuff is a little hand wavy at times, but otherwise I didn't have any particular. Oh, actually, no. Actually, I'm going to take that back. There is one thing I have an issue with.
Okay.
Do we know when the Doctor pushed the "Don't protect the TARDIS" button so he can bump into himself? Because I know the next Doctor has to do it in order to prevent himself from colliding into the Fifth Doctor again. After that one particular children's special.
Not sure.
But Chris Eccleston crosses his own line in this as the Ninth Doctor at least 2 or 3 times. He literally at one point even shouting at himself, and I'm like, wait a minute. Is he allowed to do that? I don't think he would allow himself to do that.
I think there are two different TARDISes and like that are in the same room, but
Yeah.
it's still iffy. Yeah,
No,
that's
no, not even two TARDISes in the same room. Like the TARDIS is outside, and Chris is about to, the Ninth Doctor is about to leave, and all of a sudden the TARDIS appears with the Ninth Doctor poking his head out and going, "Hey, you, get going!" at his
yeah, that's what I meant
past
by
self.
two
So it's like,
TARDISes.
wait, no, that
Mhm.
shouldn't be right. How is he doing this? I would
I mean,
think,
to be
especially the
fair-
Ninth Doctor of all Doctors, would be particularly cross at himself doing that.
Mhm.
Mm.
Were you about to say something, Alex?
Oh, like I was gonna say, I feel like 11 intentionally did once, but now I'm thinking about it. I think that was more just
That's just 11.
Amy and Rory came back on their own to like a situation that they. It was like in like Hungry Earth, Cold Blood.
Remember in the Pandorica episode, the 11th Doctor met himself.
Hmm.
Well, the 11th Doctor would be a little less cross about that, to be fair. 11 bent rules like that a lot, to be fair, as well. So I'm not surprised 11 would do that, even though 12 supposedly fixed that. Or 10 supposedly fixed that. So I'm still sitting here going, that, but I'll allow it because it's 11. That's basically the way they wrote 11. But that's not the way they wrote 9. So I'm kind of like, huh, for a moment. For a moment or two, when they keep doing that a couple times, it's like, that should be a no-no. But I don't know for sure on that.
Okay.
The jury will be on that, but that's my one nitpick on it.
That didn't particularly bother me, but yeah. So I would say my biggest issue with the episode, and it's not a huge one, but it did, like, there were a few times that raised my eyebrow, whereas it just seemed like Kurt, or Marnie's father, was just kind of out of it at times. Like, part of it would be like the doctor would explain things to him, and then like 5 seconds later he would ask for the same explanation again. But then there were other things too that were kind of similar. So it's like, I don't know if it was just supposed to be like written as like, oh yeah, he's distraught about his daughter, and he's having trouble focusing on anything else.
Well,
But like
I also kind of believe it's also the fact that he's not really listening because this madman is wandering through his house telling him how he's going to find his daughter.
But it was like, if it felt to me like it was borderline halfway between that and halfway between like he was on sleeping pills or something.
Which also is why I'm amused by the Ninth's reaction of, okay, everyone in the back of the room for the 5th time.
Right. It's
like
like you just explained it to him twice in the same scene, so I would be cross and give an explanation like that, a comment like that too.
I guess to that end, I almost wonder if it's like the person who wrote this maybe just going, "Oh crap,
I need to pat
didn't
this
give
out
him
for
any
another minute.
dialogue
Wait
in
a
this
second."
scene."
Yeah,
Because he does, like, now that you bring that up, I'm like, there do seem to be occasions where I almost forget that the dad is even there, and then he'll speak up, and I'm like, oh right, he is still there.
He's still there, and he's still not listening. Slow clap.
That might be part of it. That's part of the problems with an audio. They're like, oh yeah, we have to have him talk so you remember he's in the scene, but there's nothing smart
good
for
we
him
can
to
give
say.
him to give, so we're just gonna
Yeah.
make him really not paying attention now. Apparently, sorry
But
about
he's
that. Here's what it
he's an
is.
interesting, because like for Doctor Who, a lot of the time you either have like you have the character who doesn't believe, and he's like, oh, I don't believe in this shit. You're just a guy carrying a box and sneaking it through the window. Or else you have the like go-getter, like, almost like soldierly character. So this is definitely a much more passive sort of character. So I imagine he is a little hard to write for in something like that. Okay, so that brings us to...
It's either him repeating the same question or him just literally sitting in the corner going, "Oh my God, he was telling the truth," and rocking back and forth.
Right. Okay, so that brings us to favorite scenes with Alex.
I think I'm gonna go with honestly, you know what? Even though Matt brought it up as like a least favorite aspect, just the dialogue of it, I did find the scene of the two, like the Ninth Doctor running into himself by accident, very funny because it's very just like, you know, oh, what are you doing here? I haven't left yet. It's like, because he pokes it up. It's like, oh, have you left yet? No. So it's like, oh, whoops, and then he buggers off.
They're like, there's two of them. It's not two of them. It's just me.
What are you doing here? Go on. Get. Well, you shouldn't have come back so early.
Because like I have to believe that like even though it's not happened on the show, that has to have like happened in the Doctor's timeline probably a few times by now, where there's just like, because they can't control the TARDIS properly, there's probably been a few moments where they've shown up too early.
You know, taking that another way, this could be an example of just like the Ninth Doctor like practicing his control over the TARDIS. Because remember, the first time we see him on screen, he fast forward as far as we know, it's only like 5 seconds in the future, and he's like, "Oh, did I mention it travels through time?" So this might be like leading into him developing that sort of control. Of course, then it's thrown out of the window 2 episodes later when they come back 6 months instead of 6 hours later.
He's semi-competent.
It's like when the TARDIS wants him to be competent, he's competent.
Yeah, when the TARDIS doesn't have anything better to do.
Nope, gonna shift that to 6 hours to 6 months because there's something more important here for you. Yoink! Oh, so I guess
so this would be Matt's favorite scene.
Yep.
Yep.
Favorite scene. Oh gosh, I'm trying to remember. There's some particularly good banter. I'm trying to think. Between the doctor and the police officer that shows up to try and investigate, the detective, I guess maybe. I'm not sure what position she was.
I think
DC, which is detective constable, which I think in the U.S. you would just call them detective.
So yeah, him and the detective when they first meet, very Ninth Doctor-y dialogue between the two of them in particular in that particular scene, because you get him being very serious about trying to find something, but then he kind of slowly slides into that jokey, "Oh, you're looking for a girl? Oh, that's not what I was looking for actually." But now that's really caught my attention. Maybe that is something to focus on, and starts going with that lead.
Oh, has someone gone missing?
Yeah.
Oh, someone gone missing. Actually, that might be very important. Actually, yes, let's go with that lead. So carrying on.
Like, yeah, very like dropped into a situation because he knows something needs fixing, but isn't quite sure, and just like through the conversation figures it out, sort of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Difference is the Doctor only asks the question once, and he pays attention when someone answers him.
Yeah.
Okay, so my favorite scene was the scene where Douglas was introduced when they go to that abandoned house, and they're talking about Jaina's past, or kind of talking about Jaina's past, but they he shows up and they prove that it's the real Douglas and everything. I thought that scene was really well done. Okay, so if no one has comments on that, then we move to... Oh, go ahead. Yeah. So least favorite scenes, starting with Alex.
like, while I get that, like, it's kind of funny because I like the an element of this, but the other thing is very, you fucked with people's timelines before, and Jaina doesn't particularly seem to care as the, like, you know, no, we can only save people when it's happened within 24 hours of, like, them going missing. And she's just like, you've got a time machine. And he's like, well, yeah, but if we go back in time and save Douglas, then you won't go on to do all of this stuff. And it's like, I get, like, it's really just because he brings up the serial killer thing that I'm like, okay, that's a that's one where it's like, okay, fine. But also, like, she doesn't, she's very much like, I wouldn't give a shit, he'd be alive. Like, in a proper body and everything. Like, I would rather this person do that than, like, whatever amazing future I'm gonna have.
So your least favorite part of it being the Doctor's action, or
pretty much that he's just like, well, I could, but that would fuck with your personal timeline, so I'm not going to.
So one thing that I think he didn't mention because she wouldn't understand it, but I think would have been part of that, is it would have created a paradox, because if he hadn't met her and she hadn't, and hadn't found Douglas through her, then he never would have solved this case.
You would never solve this case. You would have never found the kids, and they would all have basically died of old age, being unable to talk to anybody ever again.
Right.
And so also would have undone this entire story. So yeah, technically he's not in the wrong, but he also kind of realizes she can't think as advanced as some of us can.
Right. Yeah, she's still, like, new to time travel and such.
Yeah, she's still gripping trying to grasp the fact that he can travel through time and space like he does.
She's not like us and that girl from Box 1 who was raised watching time travel. What do they call them? Vid discs or whatever. I don't know.
Come to think of it, he might have specifically brought up that she wouldn't have even, like, that some sort of paradox related thing, but
he maybe very briefly touched on it, but went more towards the stuff that she would understand, like the fact that a lot of her personal timeline would have gone out the window, and that the good things she's supposed to do in her lifetime and in this time period would help affect things a lot better if things remained as they are, as opposed to trying to fix one thing that would change her entire time period and warp everything around it. And cause more unneeded deaths by a psychotic killer.
Yeah, like if he had mainly just stuck to that would create a paradox I can't, then that would have been fine. But the fact that he's more like, here's the amazing future you're going to go on to, and you're going to catch a serial killer and such, is like, I don't think she particularly cares. If you'd basically just harped on the paradox thing, then...
Well, again, she's really
while
not
she might
grasping
not
that
have
part.
still got it, while she might not have still got it, it might have, like, stuck a bit more if you just said, I physically cannot do that.
I think that was a combination. He wanted, like, he thought that would persuade her because of, the reasons why she became a cop. And I think the writers wanted to call back to the 96 movie when he was like, oh yeah, your future, you're going to do this, 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 and that. They'd be like, see, this doctor can do that too.
It's a general doctor thing, even though he doesn't always do it.
You could just as easily argue that he's literally pulling everything out of his ass.
Yeah.
Which they have said that maybe it is to some degree, but he does seem to also, if it is him pulling it out of his ass, he's coaxing them to do the right thing anyways. And technically they go and do those amazing things they were supposed to, air quotes, maybe do.
Although the funny thing is he's probably changed the future just by telling her all that anyway.
Maybe.
Because now she'll be on the lookout for it.
Well, again, now she knows she needs to go stop a serial killer.
Yeah.
And now she has even more reason to go do it.
All right, Matt, what's your least favorite scene?
Least favorite scene? Sorry, I still have to go with the two doctors seeing each other. As much as it is an amusing idea for doctors to see each other, I felt like they needed to be a lot more cross with each other. Like almost shouting at each other, "What are you doing here? You're not supposed to be doing this. This is breaking the laws of time. I'm breaking them. You need to get outside. You should have been outside already. You shut up." Kind of a deal.
Hmm.
Again, I feel the Ninth Doctor is more of a big stickler for rules like that because he technically sees himself still as the last Time Lord,
Okay.
and that's why
I guess
that was a big thing I felt for his season on the show was that he's a big stickler for rules.
So you'd think he would be as pissed off as he was in Father's Day, pretty much.
Yes, basically, he'd be as pissed off as he was in Father's Day for crossing his own timeline, and maybe as he's running out the door, just kind of cussing himself for cutting himself down for being so stupid to go backwards in time too far, kind of a deal.
I guess I will say, while I do find the scene funny, you could probably argue that this would have made a lot more sense as a scene with like Tom Baker.
Yes, if this was Tom Baker, this has been more likely, and he would have been as a little more lighthearted about it. Hey, aren't you supposed to be outside? Oh, sorry. Yes, sorry. Terribly sorry. On my way. No, not two of us. Just I'd have my time. Bye.
I've been thinking about it for mine, and this is definitely a nitpick. But the whole Igor scene kind of annoyed me.
Oh,
Because like at this, I mean, depending on which timeline you want to go by, wibbly wobbly and all that, like in the Doctor Who continuity, Frankenstein is very much fictional, very much written by Mary Shelley. So the whole idea is like, oh yeah, I met Igor, and he moved away after they built Frankenstein, and all of that. Like it just rubs me the wrong way a little bit. Like that's one too I would buy more with the Fourth Doctor because it's like the Fourth Doctor, like you never know whether he's serious or not. Whereas the Ninth Doctor, I feel like when the Ninth Doctor name drops, it's usually like someone he's legit met and legit serious. And like here he's talking to someone who doesn't even know that he's a time traveler yet. So like that sort of name dropping is weird in and of itself.
yeah, I will agree that doesn't quite mesh.
You could argue
unless
he's
there's
just
a real
trying to...
Igor out there, but then
Right.
they include Hollow Frankenstein with it too. Is just like, wait a minute.
Like, oh yeah, Igor is actually Percy Shelley. No, but it's maybe you could argue he's trying to lessen the tension a little bit, but it still felt a little off to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, that's probably more of a nitpick. Like that didn't really overall influence my enjoyment of the whole thing very much.
Yeah, it just seems a little not quite right.
Okay, final thoughts, starting with Alex.
Like as I brought up before, for something that seems to be, at least, maybe the thing that I was listening to it through was making it seem like it was longer than it actually was or something, but it seemed to say that the entire thing plus credits was, and there's only like a minute of credits, was like,
So basically 47 minutes.
was like 47 48 minutes. But yeah, it does not feel like it. I mean, to be fair, I was listening to it and playing video games, but even then it was very much like, wow, that actually went by pretty quick. Like that did not feel like I almost thought it was a half hour or something, but it's like, nope, it was almost an hour. So holy crap, I give them credit for that. There are a few like bits here and there that are very like, meh, probably could have done without that, but nothing like egregious, I guess. Like nothing that that I would really like harp on without maybe having had time for a second listen. But yeah, it's very much one of those things where like it's not great, but it's definitely not bad either, at the very least. I don't know if I would go out of my way to listen to it again. But at the same time, at least I know that it wouldn't feel like a slog if I did. um, Definitely worth checking out in any case, because your mileage may vary. And I guess it's just great to hear. It's like just fun to hear Eccleston in something new again.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Matt.
That's about it.
Alrighty. There are nitpicks to have about this. We've mentioned a couple scenes that we have nitpicks about, probably more than once now. But to be fair, those are nitpicks. The mass majority of this is still really nicely done. It's very well timed. The most of the rest of the almost all the dialogue, except for those couple nitpick moments, is really good and really tight and really well done. The characters are interesting, and the way they develop it is a really good story to follow along with, and it's easy to follow along with, which can be a problem sometimes with audio. But otherwise, yeah, I have to say this is a pretty solid one. It's not. I don't think this is going to be an extremely important story by any means, which is kind of a little bit of a notch down. And again, there's some little tidbits here that could have been fixed up in dialogue. Maybe nix a couple things or rework them somehow. But other than that, very solid story otherwise. Very, very well done.
Okay, so my feeling is that this is overall a pretty simple story, to the point where it's really hard to find extreme feelings for me. I couldn't find things that I really strongly disliked, but I couldn't find much that I really strongly liked. That said, as I mentioned earlier, it's a very good job in the sense of being a story that fits really well for audio. It fits better for audio than on screen, and those are always the best sort of audio dramas. Some audios fit equally well on both media, and some really fit better on screen, and they kind of just try to force it into audio. This definitely does not have that problem. It would have been a worse story on screen than it is in audio, so definitely props for that. But it feels like it's not as deep as a lot of audio dramas that I'm used to listening to. Maybe because it's such a short one and it's more episodic, at least as far as we know. It's part of a box set, so maybe there's a linking story that we don't know about yet.
Maybe there's some ins and outs we don't know about yet. Yeah.
But at the moment, it feels like it feels like Doctor Who popcorn. It's it's kind of a filler story you listen to, you have fun for a few minutes, and then you kind of forget about it and move on. And it feels like really this is what this kind of story is.
But good filler is always good filler.
Yep. So now we get to our ratings, starting with Alec.
Oh, let's see. I mean, while this is very much like, I don't think I'll necessarily go out of my way to listen to it again and such. I feel like because there's nothing particularly egregiously bad for me, I'm going to be nice and give this a 4.
Okay, 4.0. Matt?
Wow, I suddenly turned into Tim. I thought you were going to be like a little bit closer to me. I'm giving it a 4.5.
And a 4.0 is close to a 4.5.
I was still expecting maybe go a little higher, but okay.
I'm also thinking a 4.0. It's enjoyable, but it doesn't have that something spicy to bring it up to a 4.5 to me.
Like,
see, I'm sitting here going, it's popcorn filler, but it's really good popcorn filler. Do you know how bad it is when you have bad popcorn filler? Because believe me, it's atrocious.
So with just the three of us, that gives us an average of 4.17. And let's see where that brings us in the rankings. So comparing it to other big finishes, that puts it on par with Destiny of the Doctor Shockwave. And that's it for Big Finish. It is not as good as the Sixth Doctor, The Last Adventure, The End of the Line, or 10th Doctor Adventure, Death and the Queen.
Those were pretty solid.
And it is better than Susan's War Part 3, Assets of War. And that's it for big finishes.
Alrighty.
Okay. So it's in the range of about 140 out of a total of 420 things reviewed. Which is all we have to say about this episode. Let us know in the comments what you thought of this week's episode if you've watched it, listened to it in this case. Don't forget to like the video if you've listened this far, and subscribe on YouTube to get our exports every week, or follow us on Twitch to get notified when we stream. Next time, we continue our look at Series 2 of the Ninth Doctor Adventures with Fright Motif, written by Tim Foley and starring Christopher Eccleston as the Doctor.
Alrighty. See you all next week.
See you then.
Another short, easy listen.